Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and distinguished guests. When I was a young girl, I had a very inflated sense of self-confidence. And I blame my mother because she told me that I was a genius. And she also told me that I was the best at everything that I did. And of course, at that age, I wasn't able to really distinguish between exaggeration and reality. So I walked around thinking that I was the smartest person in the world. But luckily, she also imbued in me a sense of humility, and she told me, don't brag about your accomplishments, make sure that you listen and that you observe more than you speak. And I'm glad she taught me that as well, otherwise I'm sure I wouldn't have made any friends at that age. There are some thoughts and ideas I think can be very easily instilled in people just by talking with words of affirmation the way my mother did to me. But I think oftentimes lessons like these are much more profound and personal when we actually live these experiences ourselves. And so today I want to talk to you about how I learned my lessons about confidence and humility and the philosophies that were born from these lessons. My lessons on confidence and humility came in the form of OCS. OCS stands for Officer Candidate School, and it's a 10-week-long training pipeline that you have to graduate from in order to be commissioned as an officer in the United States Marine Corps. It was probably the most physically and mentally demanding and challenging thing that I've ever done in my life. Just to give you a sense of our attrition rate, this was my company. And back in that corner, very focused in the back. And in the back, that's our platoon, that's the female platoon. And we started off with about 50 females. By the end near the end, we were down to 30. And this was actually very close to our graduation when we commemorated the end of our OCS training. And there are actually, I think, one or two faces on here that ended up not even graduating with us either. So the number was actually less than that. We were under 30. The drops came from various different reasons. We had medical drops, we had leadership failures, we had people that couldn't pass academic tests. Some people just couldn't make the physical standards. But the very interesting drop that we also had was something called a voluntary drop. Up until about week 3, everybody that dropped was due to some sort of injury. But right around week 3, they told us, hey, if you want to quit, just quit, and you can go home. So OCS was extremely challenging from a physical standpoint, but as soon as they threw in that little mental game right there, hey, you can go home, I think that made the mental battle so much more difficult. One of my memories that stand out the most from OCS comes from this event right here. It's called the O course, for short. It's the obstacle course. And so you start all the way over here at the front. You maneuver through all of these obstacles up until 14, the last one, which is the road. And the day that they introduced this course to us, they started us off all the way at number 1, and we as a platoon went through this all together. So they showed us how to do it, they allowed us to maneuver the obstacle, and then we would constantly move on, and move on, until we got to the end. However, right from the beginning, I wasn't really paying attention because all I could see looming from the corner of my eye was this right here. And I'm the kind of person that likes to practice and to be able to do things before I do it in front of other people, and I had never climbed a rope before in my life. In my head, I was thinking, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it up the rope. Will I even make it to the top? Am I going to embarrass myself in front of all my platoon mates? By the time we got to the ropes, there was a girl in front of me, and this whole time I had hyped myself up, and my heart was pounding, and I was just standing there, just getting a pretty breath. Hands are sweating, and I'm thinking, I'm sure the sweaty hands aren't going to help me get up those ropes either. And as I'm thinking all these thoughts, I see the girl in front of me. She climbs up the rope, and she's nearly to the top. And all of a sudden, I see a blur, and she fell from nearly the top of the rope. And she broke her ankle, and I saw some people come over, pick her up, and leave. And in my head, I was thinking, is this a game? Are they doing this against my mental psyche? Are they pretending like this happened? But no, she actually broke her ankle. She got sent home. And as I'm trying to process this, and I'm in shock, the sergeant instructor is standing there like, hello, you're next. Like, hurry up. And so I'm standing there like, oh, okay, well, I guess I gotta go. The funny thing is, I don't really remember going up and down the rope because I made it up there and I came back down and there were no issues. The funny thing is, the thing that really was in my memory was several days later, they introduced us to something called the E course, the endurance course. It started off with the O course, and once you were done with the O course, then at the bottom right here, we lined up our gear and we would put on our vest with some canteens, pick up our rifle, and then we would go on a 2.5 long trek into the Quantico Woods. And this took we had to finish it within, I think it was 45 minutes for the males and around 50 minutes for the females. So it was quite a long training evolution. And it wasn't a nice hike through the woods where you get to enjoy the scenery. You were going through many different obstacles, barbed wire. There was one where you had to go into the water that was about waist high and it was just freezing cold because this was in the middle of winter for us. It was not a pleasant experience. Now, before I even started the E-course, I was at the top of that rope. And this is a memory that's very seared into my mind, probably because I'm a little bit embarrassed by it. But I remember I was up at the top of the rope, and I recall that girl that had fallen off the top of the rope and that she was home. And at that moment, I was thinking, that sounds nice. And as I touched the top of the wood to indicate that I had reached the top, for a split second, I just thought, I could just let go of the rope. I could fall, and I could break my ankle, and I could get sent home. That sounds awesome. Luckily, that thought only lasted for a few seconds, and I safely made my way down, and I finished the E-course and had no issues. But it was something that was seared into my memory because I was very embarrassed by the fact that I even had this thought while I was up there. And that was not the only time that thought crossed my mind. The most physically taxing thing throughout OCS for me were the hikes. As you can see, I'm very thrilled about it. I don't even know who took this picture, but we found it. But we would basically put packs on that were more than half our weight, and we would just walk, run for some of us because we had shorter legs, so we had to try to keep up. And it could be anywhere from 3 miles to 9 miles, and it was pretty bad. I remember when my husband went through TBS, which is the 6-month training after OCS, I had asked him, why are the hikes so bad? And he was like, just trust me, you'll see. I was like, well, what are the hikes? And he's like, well, you're walking with a lot of stuff. And I'm like, you're just walking, that doesn't sound so bad. And he's like, okay, you'll see. And so I figured it out. Everything's pulling on your shoulders. You've got these straps that are hitting on your hips, and you want to keep them tight on your hips, but when you're done, you end up with these huge bruises for days. Everything's hurting your knees, your ankles. And during this moment, I had that same thought again. I wonder if my body might just give out. And in a weird way, I kind of wanted it to happen. I was wondering maybe if my ankle might just kind of get caught on a loose rock, or maybe my knees will just kind of give out, or maybe my hips won't be able to take it that much longer. And then I can finally stop and get stuck and get thrown into the medical van, and I can get sent home. These mental battles continued all throughout OCS. They never stopped. Because although they had given us that option to say, hey, I quit, I'm gonna go home, I didn't want to say I quit. I didn't want to go home and tell everybody, yeah, I decided to give up. But if it was a physical failure, I kind of thought, there's nothing I can do about it, right? The thing was, no matter how much I wished for my body to give up on me, the crazy thing was it never did. For the entire 10 weeks that I was there, my body never gave up. It never gave me a reason to go home. And I was so angry at my body at the time. But now I've come to really appreciate the resilience of the human body. Through my experiences at OCS, these were some philosophies that came to my mind. Regarding confidence, our bodies are so much more resilient than you can ever imagine. We will oftentimes not really test ourselves to that limit. And from the humility side, something that I was humbled by was that my mind is actually a lot weaker, and I will want to quit well before I reach my physical limitations. Now, you might think that post-OCS, post-TBS, post all these trainings, how is this really relevant outside of that? When will I ever have to climb a rope again? When will I ever have to put on a pack and go hiking? Probably never. But I realized that this is actually pretty relevant in my life in other areas as well. This might be a bit of a silly example, but in the middle of the night, I found myself waking up at 3 a.m. because the baby was crying, and I realized that she needed a diaper change. And I was thinking, I just really need my sleep. If she gets a diaper rash, maybe we can put some cream on it and do it better. I really think I need my sleep. But at those moments, I have to tell myself, no, just get up and change your diaper. It'll save me the heartache and the pain in the long run, and I can do it. It's not my physical body that can't do it. It's my mind telling me no. One thing that I also almost talked myself out of almost a year ago, or over a year ago, was joining Toastmasters. I told myself, there's no way this is going to help me with my public speaking. Everyone there is probably very polished. I'm going to make a fool of myself up at that lectern. And had I listened to that, I wouldn't be standing here giving my number 10 speech today. So I'm very grateful, and I want to thank all of you for giving me the confidence, despite my mental reservations, to keep at it. And the next time you ever have a moment where you might be doubting yourself that you can't do something, just remember, you are much more resilient than you think. Mr. President.
and especially I definitely would have broken my ankle. I'm looking at my past notes from your day one. I think I did one of your first evaluations, but I remember you talking about being an imposter. There's one thing that she has proved to us time and time again. She's not an imposter. This gal's the real deal. Confidence and humility, you showed us that every single time you spoke, that this is your number 10, that you chose to wrap it up with exactly who you are. Good for you. Great choice. Was this speech topic relevant to the occasion? Well, I'm not quite sure about that. That's certainly being superior and wonderful and marvelous, and your pictures are fantastic. That was the only thing I wasn't really sure is what you were looking to inspire us to do. And in Toastmasters, we like to look at this as be certain that you tell us what you were going to tell us, then tell us, and then tell us what you told us. You certainly told us at the end that the idea of your inspiration was that we were to commemorate that which we think we are limited at by our bodies and because of our minds. That was what we were looking at is, and that happens to all of us, but you articulated that so beautifully, and your body language brought us right there along with your pictures, especially having that image of the obstacle course there while you were being terrified and thinking about that girl in front of you. Oh my, how that must have been a deflator to see her fall. And then you come up and make us laugh with your truth about thinking, she fell, she's not dead, okay. Maybe that's not a bad idea. And to think of a woman of your power, which we've seen from the beginning, having that thought makes me feel a little bit better about myself. Because if you feel that way, then my feeling that way on occasion, it gives me some permission. Because, ma'am, you're a star. I mean, Marine Corps officer, wow. Now, every time I pick up my canteen and then run off with my rifle, go through the barbed wire and the freezing water, well, that's never happened. But you do that. That's part of who you are as a human being. And if that was something that you were required to do for your child, we know that you would do that. Without doubt, we know that you would do that. We know that you would do that as an officer for us in the country. Your speech brought us back to the beginning, to your mom, who said she wanted you to keep your confidence level humble. And you certainly haven't. You are such a humble human being. But like Arnie's mom, you are also, with your mom, you are all that. You are marvelous. You are fantastic. And you told us that today. And I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Your number 10 is fantastic. Thank you so much.